Understanding the relationship between color and culture in the critical reading of visual works. In the age of image saturation, encountering visual messages, from paintings and film posters to urban advertisements and user interfaces, is an everyday occurrence. But there is a fundamental difference between seeing and critical reading. Critical reading means the ability to ask, beyond its surface appearance, what hidden meaning does this visual work convey through its colors? And to what extent is that meaning dependent on cultural context? While the basic principles of color psychology, such as red for arousal or blue for calmness, appear to be universal to a certain degree, the ultimate meaning of a color is always shaped within its specific cultural setting. A single color can send two completely opposite messages, or even offensive ones, in two different parts of the world. Therefore, any critical reading of visual works without attention to the cultural layer remains incomplete and potentially misleading. 3 levels of color analysis in critical reading. To read a visual work, whether a classical painting, a news photograph, or a digital interface, 3 levels of color analysis are necessary. Biological, universal level. What basic feeling does the color evoke? At danger, calmness, warmth, coldness. This level is nearly common to all humans. Cultural symbolic level. In the culture of the creator and the culture of the audience, what historical, religious, mythological, or political meaning does this color carry? Contextual level. How does the meaning of the color change in interaction with other elements, shape, line, texture, composition, and also the display context of the work? Concrete examples of cultural contrasts in art and media. White. In Western cultures, white signifies purity and marriage. In East Asia and parts of the Middle East, it signifies mourning. For example, an art photograph of a bride in a white dress might evoke sorrow in Japan rather than joy. In an Indian film, the white clothing of widows carries a completely different meaning. Red. In China, red represents luck and celebration. In some African cultures, it signifies violence and martyrdom. In Europe, it can mean love or danger. For instance, Chinese traditional paintings dominated by red convey good fortune, whereas the same red tone in a South African art installation could evoke memories of political violence. Green. In the Islamic world, green symbolizes sanctity and paradise. In the West, it can mean jealousy or money. In Chinese opera, a green face indicates a demonic character. Extensive use of green on a film festival poster in Cairo conveys spirituality, while a face lit with green light in a European film might symbolize jealousy. Yellow. In some parts of Latin America, yellow is associated with death and mourning. In China, it represents imperial power. In ancient Egypt, it was the color of joy. Edvard Munch's famous painting, The Scream, with its yellow-orange sky, takes on a different interpretation of anxiety in a culture where yellow signifies death. Purple. In Thailand, purple is a color of mourning for widows. In the West, it denotes royalty and creativity. In Japan, it signifies aristocracy. Using purple on a comedy film poster in Thailand could be judged completely inappropriate. Practical framework. 4 questions for critical reading. When encountering any visual work, artistic, commercial, journalistic, public, ask these 4 questions. 1. In which geographical and cultural context is the primary audience of the work located? The differences among Japan, Brazil, and Egypt are as significant as the differences between those countries themselves. 2. Does the work rely on stable color symbols, archetypes, or on ephemeral symbols, fashion, current events? Ephemeral symbols may become incomprehensible or even offensive within a short period. 3 in combination with what other shapes, symbols, and textures is the color used? A neutral color placed next to a religious or political symbol can acquire a completely different meaning. 4. The reverse cultural test. Imagine how the same work would be perceived in another culture. For example, replacing red with blue. This exercise reveals blind spots of meaning beyond binary oppositions, polysemy, and globalized culture. In today's world, cultural boundaries are no longer completely rigid. A teenager in Tokyo, Berlin, and Mexico City may share cross-cultural color cues through social media. Nevertheless, deep local norms do not simply disappear. The result is the polysemy of colors. A single color can simultaneously carry local and global meanings. Critical reading in this situation requires recognizing which layer of meaning dominates in the specific context of the work. For example, purple in South Korea is still tied to the old monarchy, but the younger generation also knows its Western meaning of creativity. A film poster designer might deliberately exploit this ambiguity, and it is the task of the critical reader to uncover these coexisting layers. Conclusion. Understanding the relationship between color and culture transforms critical reading from a specialized skill into a general competence for any viewer who engages with visual works, whether in a museum, in urban space, or in digital media. This kind of reading is not for aesthetic judgment, but for uncovering hidden meanings, avoiding cross-cultural misunderstandings, and achieving a richer experience of art and visual communication. Every visual work is a cultural document, and color is the most essential dictionary of that document.